If what you want is real, relevant hunting, you are in the right place. With moderator Josh Miller, owner of Triple Point Outdoors, co-hosts Kevin Cook, owner of the Outdoor Pro Shop, and Brian Keitlinger, athlete and creator of Left in the Field Outdoors. Welcome to the Reinvent the Hunt podcast.
All right, well, welcome everybody back to the Reinvent the Hunt podcast. We are already on episode 14, and we have a pretty awesome episode tonight. Can't wait to talk to these ladies. We have Carly Watkins Outdoors, and we also have Kayla from the River Queen Guide Service. Hopefully I got that right. I didn't want to screw that up to start the podcast, but thank you ladies for being on tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. I know Kevin knows you guys a bit more than I do. I've been introduced to you. I've seen all kinds of content flying around. Carly's took some giant fish, and so I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't know what fish you are after all the time because I'm a farm kid. But this is usually fishing farm ponds around Ohio. So bass and crappie and bluegill are my thing. But how did you guys get into this, and what started it?
So I am a Maryland native. So I grew up, born and raised in Maryland. My family has a beach house in Fenwick Island, which is on the eastern shore. So I grew up crabbing, running trot lines, things like that, fishing from the pier in Ocean City. So for me, I got an early start, but I don't think I found my passion until I was just pretty recently, actually. My husband and I, during COVID, we got really big into just being on the water, boating, because there was nothing else that we really could do at the time. So we took advantage of the time that we did have, and we wanted to be outside. And so we spent, every moment that we had out on the water. And that prompted us to buy our house where we live now in Pasadena. And that's kind of how I got hooked up with you guys, was through Kevin, because he's also a Pasadena native. So
Kevin's a man, by the way. Kevin has these contacts. He's the most diverse human possible. He's like, I know this guy, I know this gal. He's all over the place.
And it's funny because I never used to be this way either. And I started my own business, and then it just, I don't know. I just started, like you said at the beginning, like network is everything, networking. And I just met so many people from starting a business, and and it's just started snowballing from there. Once you meet with somebody, the network just starts going, and it's great to meet people.
It's also cool when you have those common passions. Like, I can tell, like, you ladies obviously have a huge passion for what you do, and just seeing, I think people see the passion through your content, and I think that becomes really real. So I think some people, they want to fake that passion, but you can't fake it forever, and it shows. Like, if you're really enjoying what you're doing, that's going to emanate from the content, and it does, for sure. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, exactly. Like I said, I always had kind of like a like for fishing, and then when I moved to on the water, that's what really prompted the fishing in general. And my husband, he's a contractor, so he deploys quite a bit. So this past deployment is where I really kind of found my niche, and I was taking the kayak out as much as I possibly could, and just doing that on my own, and having an outlet for my alone time, my me time, my time with nature and just outdoors. That's what sort of prompted that. And then I got connected with the Hogfin team, and got to meet some really incredible ladies that a lot of my content, features some of these ladies that I've met, and we just became fast friends. Cause like you were talking about with the whole passion thing, when you find like-minded people, you kind of just want to grab on and hold on to them as long as you can. Cause it's rare that you find somebody that has the same passion, similar passion, and, just could relate to one another so immediately. So that's definitely kind of prompted that passion and that love, is finding other people, just like Kevin was talking about with the whole networking thing, and meeting people and getting to interact and get to experience new things. That's all been a really cool part of the process, for sure. And
Kayla, from your aspect, now I guess I want to go back to Carly for 1 second. Carly, is this a full-time thing for you, or is this like your passion?
No, I'm a dental hygienist by trade, by day. So this is just a passion project, not even a project, just something that I love to do, and something that I just recently started kind of posting and creating content, because it's something that I love, and I wanted to showcase and sort of not advocate, but just show women especially that, girls do it too, and we can be really good at it, and you don't need to necessarily, go out with the boys in order to do it too. So that's what prompted that.
I'm excited to talk to Kayla as well. Kayla, you run this as a business? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, so I run a guide service part-time. I mean, I have a separate full-time job where I work at a wholesale plant nursery, but I guide part-time. Hopefully soon in the next couple of years, maybe I'll make it full-time. But I love fishing so much that I'm a little afraid to make it full-time. Because once
Yeah,
once
I get that.
once you make it a job,
Yeah.
that's where things get a little difficult. But
Yeah.
it's just a part-time business, and I run trips on the weekends, after work, before work.
What do you fish for? What species?
So I kind of do a wide variety of species. I guess my three main target species are smallmouth bass, snakeheads, and striped bass. Snakeheads have kind of taken over everything lately. I think just because that's one of the hottest species Maryland has to offer right now, because they're super fun to catch and even better to eat now that people are finding out how good they are. And they're also an invasive species, so Maryland DNR is really pushing to extract them from the water and do a catch and kill kind of thing. But yeah, snakeheads have really become my most popular target species that a lot of my clients want to get after.
That's really cool. I know we're coming down in June. Hopefully Kevin's going to come along. We're going to go to Bullfrog, Bow Fishing Adventures, and do some snakehead bow fishing. I've never been bow fishing yet. Done a lot of bow hunting around the world, but I'll probably be overboard a few times. So we'll be on GoPro. It'll be a mess. It'll be a blast. But I think what you ladies share in this cool venture is like there's a common passion that you can see just by talking to you. But I also like what Carly said in the fact that you're connecting to a different demographic. I see like we grew up watching Bill Dance on TV, right? Your fishing thing, and it's like very common to see that type of fishing, but not to see women out there doing it, showing these young girls like how cool that is. So I champion that. You guys are that's awesome to see, because you're just, I would say you're sending it. In my terms, you're out there doing your thing, and I think that's what we need in this sport and the outdoors in general. Like Kevin, same thing. We all work full-time jobs doing other things, but with the advent of what I'm doing and what Kevin's doing and all of you, I think there's a common thread of like we do it because we love it.
Right.
For sure. And you mentioned bow fishing. Actually, Kayla and some of our other friends we're going bow fishing, hopefully, as long as the weather cooperates, this Saturday. And I've never done it before, so I'm super excited about that.
That's cool. That's very cool. I have no idea where to aim, so they keep telling me like you aim low, don't you?
Aim low.
Refraction.
Aim low.
Yeah.
Aim low.
If you think you're aiming low, aim even lower.
Aim low and probably a lot of cussing in the minutes, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it happens.
It happens. I've gone a handful of times over the years, and that's the one thing I keep telling myself. Like, I'm also a bow hunter and do deer hunting, so it's really hard for me to
I can imagine
put the two and two. Because with bow hunting deer, you obviously have to aim dead on, but like with bow fishing, and it also depends too on like how deep the fish are. If they're super deep, you have to aim like, I feel like 2 feet under, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
That's so weird.
This is against the law.
That's what I was most nervous about. Sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I grew up shooting and like going for accuracy and like Kayla said, dead on. So that I think that's going to be my biggest qualm, is like changing that mindset and that mentality of not aiming for what I'm seeing and having to think about the refraction. That's what I feel like I'm going to struggle with the most.
Absolutely.
Shooting too when you're bow fishing. Like it's not just, you're not aiming through a sight. It's just like instinct.
Yeah.
And you're moving, you're bobbing around too to a degree. The boat's kind of moving, and so you're just kind of like winging it. And I guess you have to have that
different challenge.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a mess for me down there. It'll be all over the place. It'll be a lot of fun.
Just the one piece of advice I can give you is don't overthink it. Just draw back and shoot.
Let go.
And and if you miss, you miss. Try not to beat yourself up. But I'm sure whoever you're going with will definitely help you out, and give yourself some patience.
Absolutely. So what I got to ask you, Carly, both of you guys, actually, what is the craziest story that you have while you're doing? Oh, there's Brian. Hey, Brian. He rose from the dead. There's Brian. What's the
Hi.
craziest story you guys have had in your adventures or out in the ocean or whatever you're doing? Gotta be some crazy stories out there.
I think one of my craziest stories was like definitely the first time I caught a snakehead, because that for me is what like sparked the passion, because I was just dead set on catching one of these things. You know, I kept hearing about them, and I wanted to get one so bad. I heard like all of these crazy stories about how they were, you know, crazy fighters and they could be really like spooky. And I had, my mind was made up and I had no idea what I was doing. I drove an hour and a half away, used my neighbor's borrowed kayak, paddled out, I mean, literally had no idea. I was out there for like over 8 hours in the dead heat of August and lost like 15 lures that day because, you know, I just didn't know what I was doing. And finally when it hit and I got one, I was ecstatic. So I think between like that first catch of mine that like initially sparked it was probably one of my personal craziest stories. And then probably the day that I went out with my buddy Dan, I have stories for days about my friend. So long story short, I connected with a good friend of mine that I went to high school with, and he introduced me to, it's sort of like his second father, but he's a wild man, and he's just as passionate about fishing, but just in a different way. Like we're complete polar opposites. You know, I'm a dental hygienist, so I'm super like meticulous and organized, and everything has to be a certain way. And I'm like a neat freak, and all of my lures and tackle boxes are, you know, all set up a certain way. And he's total opposite. Like his boat, I mean, you'll get stuck with a jig head if you're not careful, because it's insane. So I show up one day and we're going to go fishing on his boat. And he asked me to grab saran wrap on my way there. And I was like, okay, I thought like it was for sandwiches, right?
Yeah, let's go.
No. The man shows up. His engine cover had blown off of his engine because he didn't put it on all the way because he was working on it. Because the time before I went out on this particular trip, we ended up getting beached because his engine wouldn't start. The current was taking us. It was insane. We ended up having to get towed. It was a nightmare, but it like also super fun at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I show up and yeah, his engine cover blew off. So he was saran wrapping the engine so we could still go out and fish. And that same day he loses his $3,000 live scope on from the boat. It fell in the water and he just kept going because we were chasing birds. It was during that trophy striper, you know, time over the winter where it was before, you know, everybody was kind of out for the holidays. So like we kind of had the bay to ourselves. So we were just, I mean, hauling butt, and he loses all this stuff and he just keeps going. And I mean, like I said, stories for days. So that's probably my craziest, you know, or one of my craziest stories of just going out with him, because every time it's an adventure.
It's fun to have crazy friends. Like it's always fun. It's always an adventure.
For sure. It makes it fun.
Kayla, how about yourself?
Gosh, I mean, I have, like Carly, just a book of crazy stories, but probably one of the dumbest things I've done. I don't even know if it's dumb. It's just crazy. I was really big into surf fishing for striped bass for a couple years, and a friend of mine just randomly texted me one night and he was like, "We gotta go." I was like right now, gotta go? And he's like, "Yeah, get your surf rod, get your waders. We gotta go." And I was like, "All right, well, where are we going?" And he's like, "New York." I'm like, "New York?" Tonight, you know, it was like 9 o'clock at night or whatever. He was like, "Yeah, we got to get there before, you know, the tide swing and, you know, before the moon phase and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "All right, well, let's go." Not really thinking, paying attention, trying to think of an excuse of what I'm going to say to the boss at work the next day because I'm not going to be there. We drove all the way to Fisherman's Island, New York, and we took a ferry. So we got there, you know, like I said, we left probably 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Drove all the way there. That morning, we took a ferry across from the mainland over to Fisherman's Island, New York, and hung out on the mainland. And this was when there was, I can't remember the tropical storm. I want to say like Henry or Henry I, something like that. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but this tropical storm was coming straight for New England. And I said to my buddy, I was like, are we gonna fish pre-storm, post-storm, during the storm? Like, what's up? And again, was really, really big into surf fishing, and I was just kind of getting into it through him. So anyway, we drove up there, took the ferry across. We fished pre-storm. I've never caught so many striped bass from the beach in my life, and it was super, super cool. It was really humbling just to be, because I'm a big boat fisherman, so I do a lot of my fishing from my boat and my friends' boats, and my family. So being able to stand in the beach, and in the surf, like, I felt such a bigger connection with these fish than I've ever felt before. So then we took a break and we were kind of coming up with a game plan as to what to do. And we were talking, and I said, we should probably try to get back to the mainland and find somewhere like maybe on Montauk or Long Island, we can fish from there. But I was like, we should really probably try to get back. So when we went to try to find the ferry to get back, they had shut the ferry down. They weren't running any ferries, no passengers were getting back to the mainland. And I'm like, dude, what are we gonna do? There was no hotel on Fisherman's Island, because it was just like you either lived there or had a vacation home, or it's just like a visiting island. I'm like, I swear we are so screwed. So we ended up staying on the island. There was one little like general store. We were eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah.
Luckily we got, we had water and whatnot. Yeah. So we ended up staying on the island during the storm. We parked his truck, like, the salt domes you see on the side of the road, like the highways.
Mm-hmm.
So they had one of those on the island. So we like parked in that parking lot, and we rode out the storm on the island, like I said, eating out of his truck. We had like a quarter tank of gas the entire time, and it was in like the fall, so it wasn't like super warm or super cold. It get cold during the storm, and I ended up riding out a tropical storm on an island I've never been to before.
Isn't that awesome?
in a Ford Ranger truck.
The Danger Ranger.
Yeah, the Danger Ranger.
Yeah, I like it.
It was a full day we were there. By the time the storm passed, it was the next morning, and we were the first ones on the ferry back to the mainland, to a hotel and a bathroom and a shower.
I'm sure we've probably all been there. Don't you feel like in the moment of those adventures, we've all had them, you're going, this is absolutely hell. But then like 5 years down the road is one of the best memories you've ever had. Like, you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And I feel like you learn so much from every stupid, or not, like Kayla was saying, it's like not stupid. You're just not experienced with it. But like, I'll never forget, there was, I think it was 2 4th of Julys ago, but I think it might've been the day before we were out on the boat. We were stuck in this horrific storm. It came out of nowhere. I mean, the bay, like, people think, ocean, oh, that's like so crazy and it's so scary, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the bay is just as crazy, and the weather can take a turn like that. And if you aren't super familiar with it or where you're at or whatever, it can be really dangerous. So we were out on not my current boat. It was our 21-foot Mako center console. And I mean, that thing, it was old, but it was reliable, and it had a really deep hull. So it was able to cut through some pretty rough water. And we got stuck in this really bad storm. We made the mistake of not stopping for fuel. We thought, oh, like, no problem. We'll get it on the way back. And it was 4th of July weekend. So all the gas stations shut down early. So we had no fuel. We're stuck in this storm. We finally made it to Annapolis. Once everything kind of like blew over, we were like, we can't get home. Like, we were, we live in Pasadena and we're all the way in Annapolis, and we didn't have enough fuel to get home. Somehow managed to meet this guy that had a house with a dock in Annapolis, and he let us stay at his dock overnight, and we were able to pick up the boat the next morning. And I mean, we were so grateful, so just appreciative of, like, I mean, he gave us a tarp for the ride back, because we were like soaking wet. I mean, he didn't have any, he was like, I'm sorry, I don't have any towels, but here's this, like, I think it was a grill cover, actually. He's like, but here's this grill cover. And we're like, no, we're just so grateful to be on land finally. And he was like, you're not a boater until this has happened to you. And he's like, and if, he's like, most people that have been through that before are going to be just as willing to help, because we all know how much it sucks. And lesson learned, we never leave without fuel, and we always check the weather. And even then, I mean, it can be sketchy. I was at the Blue Angels air show today in Annapolis, and the ride back was pretty choppy. It was pretty rough. Being used to it and knowing, you know, how to navigate, knowing which way the wind was going, you can kind of just navigate a little bit better. But it's all a learning experience.
Yeah, it's funny. You have the old timers. You know, you think they're so wise because they lived through all these things. I remember a few times I was up on Erie, and of course Erie's pretty shallow, and we were on a walleye charter. Brian knows what I'm talking about. And man, I'll tell you what, like in 3 seconds, a thunderstorm can just turn that whole lake into like 4 or 5 foot waves. And I was hanging on the grab bar. You know, there's another name for that. I won't say it on here, but I'm hanging on the grab bar like I am going to die. And you know, like the impacts of the waves were incredible. I've never experienced that kind of collision before. It's like high school football lacrosse. You know, it's crazy.
Oh, my mom took a tumble today. We got a huge, like, just rogue wave out of nowhere. And I mean, I'm standing in the back, and I don't even know why she was sitting up front. I kept telling her to sit, you know, towards the back of the boat where it was more stable, but I just see this wall of water. And this is today. I mean, it was a relatively nice day. It was just windy, and there was so much boat traffic that like it was rougher than it normally would have been. But I was like, oh my gosh. And I mean, that water just swept her right off her seat, and she was on the ground on the boat. I mean, she was fine, but you know, it's powerful. Like Mother Nature is powerful. You don't want to test it. And when I mean, if you do, you got to be as prepared as you can possibly be. I mean, I can't stress that enough. We were just out fishing the other day with my buddy. You know, we have the CB radio turned on, and the Coast Guard was saying that there was a man overboard in the Severn River, which was, you know, not far where we were from. And it wasn't even, you know, a rough day. It was just rainy, but it wasn't like windy. The water was relatively calm, but it can happen so fast.
Absolutely. Brian, good to have you on. I know you had some connectivity issues, but do you have any questions for the ladies here?
I'm enjoying the stories, and I've smallmouth fished on Lake Erie a lot, and it's a very shallow lake. And you know, one time we went out through the bay, went out and hit a spot. I threw out one cast, hooked a smallmouth. Before I even got him in the boat, it had turned to 4 or 5 foot swells, and we basically inched back in. And there were even whitecaps on the bay that day, and we were in a 18-foot boat, and I thought we were gonna get crushed. But yeah, it can turn on a heartbeat. And I've done like kind of what Kayla's done before. My uncle lives in Philly, and he called me, say, hey, the bluefish are running. Why don't you come out and we'll go hit up and fish on the jetty? Well, I packed up stuff because it was end of May. And I got out there, we got out and we fished through the night, and I had shorts on and a tank top, and the temperature dropped that night, something horrible. And I thought I about froze to death, but we slammed the bluefish all night. But I think I about got hypothermia from that. So, I mean, you just never know, you know, and that was way before the, you know, fun stuff of the weather apps and all the other stuff. It was just, hey, on a whim, let's go do that. And you know, freeze to death.
Sure. Now, I know we have to ask you, since you ladies do snakehead and various fish, what is your favorite fish to eat if you do eat them, and how do you like to cook it?
So right now, snakehead's my favorite fish to eat. Yeah, I also like a lot of panfish. So like crappie, white perch, yellow perch. Though, you know, those are always in the top 5 favorites. But right now, snakehead is probably my favorite fish to eat.
Why is that though? Like I was gonna say, why?
It's such a mild, sweet fish. It's real flaky.
I'm fired up now.
It's it's easy to cook. It's easy. Well, I don't want to say they're easy to clean, but you know, it's not a lot of like, you know, with other fish, you have to cut the red meat out, or you know, there's a bloodline or whatever. These fish, you really just, once you can get them filleted, it's pretty simple from there on out.
I agree. I mean, for the fish, like the fishing that we do around here, like the fish that I'm catching on a regular basis, for 100% snakehead. It used to be, I loved, we call them rockfish in Maryland, but the striped bass, that used to be like one of my top. I mean, it still is like, it's similar to snakehead, but I actually prefer the taste of snakehead. I think, like Kayla said, it's just, you can do it so many different ways. It'll take on the flavor of whatever you use to. So like, you know, if you like fried fish, if you like fish taco, like you can just do it so many different ways because it's such a mild fish. But I also love salmon, and I'm doing a I've never fished for salmon before because it's not, really something that we do much here like on a regular basis, but I got invited to do a salmon charter in Wisconsin in June.
Okay.
So I love eating salmon. I just don't, I don't have the opportunities to catch it very often. So I'm really looking forward to that trip because I love salmon. I like it prepared anyway, but snakehead definitely. And I like it in I like tacos, fish tacos, or with the striped bass or the rockfish. I actually make rockfish cakes. They're like crab cakes, but with the rockfish meat, and those are really good. So yeah, that's probably my favorite one that I eat regularly.
That all sounds great. I know for myself, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like salmon. Like salmon patties I can do. Growing up, my mom made them, the crushed, shredded salmon patties. But like salmon on the plank, my wife loves it. But to me, it has like a metallic flavor I just don't love. I don't know why. It's just like an irony.
Just stronger taste.
Yeah, but I love any sort of, like Kayla said, white meat, flaky, kind of sweet. Like I'll take I love walleye or saw guy. Any panfish I'm a big fan of. Like I love bluegill, but my gosh, like I get like a thumbnail of meat off of bluegill most of the time. But I love taking them in the fillet, and like we'll do like crushed Ritz cracker with a little bit of lemon pepper seasoning in it, and then just like pan fry them. And man, they're awesome.
Yeah, like Kayla was saying, the snakeheads are awesome to eat. They're just a pain in the butt to fillet because they have like this slime layer. Yeah, I mean, they're not like catfish, like it's a different kind of slime because there's nothing like a cat. I mean, a catfish slime grosses me out, but just because it's so tenacious, it doesn't go away. Snakeheads, they're like once you get them filleted, they're incredible. But yeah, they're hard to get a good grip on.
That's awesome. Like, the first time I saw one was like, I don't know, probably a month and a half or 2 months ago. We started doing the episode on that, put it together. And I was amazed at how the coloration like looks like a cross of a snake and a fish. Like I was amazed at the camouflage they have on their body.
The smaller ones typically, I mean, from what I've seen, they have like the prettiest patterns. Like once they start getting really big, they tend to get a little bit darker. But both are, I love catching the big ones. I love catching the small ones, but I've noticed, at least I don't know about you, Kayla, but the ones that are around like mid-20s, low 20s range, those tend to have like a really like stunning pattern.
Well, no, thank you ladies for being on tonight, bringing your experiences and your adventures to us to share. I think it's really awesome. Number one, that you're females doing this and just showing, like I said, that the younger demographic of kids coming up is important to us all, both boys and girls. And I hope that, by doing this, you're able to encourage more young kids getting into fishing and also hunting. But we appreciate having you both on tonight.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Come back anytime, and we'll be paying attention to all the adventures this summer. And hopefully you'll get to see us not falling overboard. Maybe Ken will be there. Maybe Brian will make it down, do some go fishing, and hopefully we won't drown. But maybe Ken will grab you. I don't know.
Yeah, have a great time with that.
We appreciate it.